I may not get through this BBC without crying, so please be compassionate. I have plenty of tissue here. And also, if I become animated during the talk, it's not out of anger, but rather because I feel quite passionate about this topic. So the rhetoric regarding undocumented immigrants, particularly those coming from Mexico and Central America, has been overwhelmingly negative, divisive, and tinged with racism. In its milder versions, the narrative coming from the upper echelons of government and other sources describe undocumented workers as unskilled, uneducated, and having little to contribute to society. And while some may arrive in the US with little formal education, I challenge the idea that they are mostly unskilled or have little to contribute to society. What seems to be the point is actually the definition of skilled. How many of us are skilled to properly roof a building? Yes, for sure you. How many of us know how to plaster stucco? How many of us, again, how many of us are skilled in laying bricks or masonry work? And how many of us can properly plow a field? In this room, only one person qualifies. I don't know too many who qualify for all those skills. I certainly could not do any of them at this moment. These are not skills that I have, although there are others who have these skills. And I don't know about you, but I wholeheartedly believe there are a number, many actually, foreign-born cabbies in New York, San Francisco, and other major cities who have advanced degrees and diplomas hanging from the walls in their dilapidated rooms. How many of us are willing to work in farms across the country for little pay, with no health insurance, and with no paid vacation? I did that for a day, and then I was determined to get an education because I knew I wasn't going to be able to live like that for long. I find Buddhism to be a very rational religion, one that encourages us to think logically, deeply, and to investigate ourselves and the world around us. So on the eve of possible immigration raids to be conducted in various cities across the country, and in the spirit of looking deeply and investigating the facts, I wanted to share with you historical perspective, as well as recent statistics presented by Joshua Zitz, a Politico magazine contributing editor who has also taught history and politics at Cambridge and Princeton, as well as statistics from the Pew Research Center. When the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock, they had no visas and probably no passports. They arrived in a foreign land with hopes and dreams and willingness to work hard and thrive, to meet the challenges, to overcome the dangers, and to make a life here for themselves and for their families. Every subsequent wave of immigrants to this country, including those of today, come with the same spirit. They too are fleeing violence, persecution, poor economic conditions, and little hope for the future. In light of their equal needs, how can we favor one group over another? I'm going to read this article now from Joshua Zitz. from Politico magazine, titled The Real History of American Immigration, published in August of 2017. Mr. Sitz, as I mentioned, taught history and politics at Cambridge and Princeton. In his article, he says that for the most part, immigrants to the United States between 1830 and 1940 hailed from areas undergoing fast economic change. The poorest peasants tended not to embark for America because they lacked the financial wherewithal to make the journey. Instead, it was far more often the displaced landowner or semi-skilled journeyman or artisan. Studies of Italian immigrants in early 20th century Rochester, Utica, and Kansas City reveal a population of families that owned small homesteads in the old country, rather than day laborers or the very destitute. The same trend was evident in other cities and among other immigrant populations. Yet, if they weren't the poorest of the poor, most immigrants in the 1800s were not skilled or educated. In San Francisco in the 1880s, Irish immigrants were 5 times as likely to be unskilled as the city's broader population. In Detroit, German immigrants were almost twice as likely to be unskilled workers as their native-born neighbors. In Pittsburgh, in 1900, fewer than 10% of Polish immigrants and just 18% of Italian immigrants were skilled workers. Most of the country's first-generation white ethnics arrived as unskilled factory and farm laborers and remained as such in their lifetimes. But most immigrants came here with mixed and often hard-headed intentions. Some came in search of opportunity and a fresh start. Others came to experience political enfranchisement and personal liberty. They were ordinary people trying to do the smart thing for themselves and their families. Large numbers of early immigrants arrived in the United States without English language skills. Even among many Irish newcomers in the mid-19th century, Gaelic, not English, was standard. Studies of second-generation Germans in Wisconsin in 1910 found that roughly 1/4 spoke only German. In Chicago in the 1920s, most movie theaters in ethnic neighborhoods deployed subtitles, as large numbers of first-generation residents could not understand English. Does that sound familiar to you? In the 1880s and early 1900s, immigrants to their country were no different from the immigrants of recent years. Yet the country prospered and became and continued to be a driving force in the world's economy, politics, human rights, taking us all to the very edge of human advancement and development. Not despite these immigrants, but because of these immigrants, because of their contributions, because they supported society in ways that other people could not. Yet today, most people whose grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents came to this country from a foreign land seem to have forgotten that fact. That is, this country had not opened the doors to them. Where would they be today? Where would their families be today if their grandparents had come here? 50 years ago, meaning 50 years ago, Oscar Handling described early American immigrants as uprooted, poor, dispossessed, dazed, and ill-prepared to succeed in urban, industrial America. Described them as damaged goods, Does that sound familiar? Later generations of historians challenged this idea. They found a treasure trove of primary sources and discovered that immigrants were often savvy and industrious. It took ambition, drive, and high tolerance for risk to transplant oneself, whether from the Irish countryside to Liverpool or from Minsk to Philadelphia. They were strivers, hard workers whose children fought world wars and built great companies. Mind you, they also built railroads, highways, from one end of the country to the other. Today's immigrants look a lot like yesterday's. This century's immigrants are no different from last century's. They resemble my great-grandparents, said the author, who came to the United States without a word of English or a practical skill, but full of grit, ambition, and pragmatic hope. That's the American history. And it has to be part of what we talk about today. I myself, as an immigrant, benefited from the kindness of this country. I came here with little. I got a lot. I believe in the spirit of this country. I believe this country is better than what is shown today or will show tomorrow, may show tomorrow. I believe in the hearts of every single person living in this country. And I make a call for you to show that heart, to live to the spirit of the Constitution, to uphold the spirit of the Statue of Liberty, to live up to your ideals and values. To not let racism, divisive speech, fear-mongering, and erroneous facts win the day. America, yes, can still be great again, but with inclusion, kindness, love, and compassion. Let those be the markers of the day.
I want to support you. You should come up and support this.
May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms, and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water, and other delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May all who are ill or injured quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may these never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other for as long as space endures and as long as living beings remain. Until then, may I to abide, to dispel the misery of the world.